It's showtime, folks. Enjoy the show.
And if I, jeez.
You can't.
It's like I want to go there, but I don't want to go there.
There's this pause, and I hear you. I hear the wheels churning. Like, wait, what am I going to say? I can't. Oh, here it comes, and I can't stop it.
I can't stop the floodgates. A fine Saturday morning to you there.
Now, on Saturdays when you're not here doing this, is that how you greet your family in the morning when they like walk in? The kids walk in.
It should be. I'm just going to start doing that all the time. Every morning, the first person I greet will get this greeting.
Great. And you've got
a fine morning to you today.
You'll get the eye roll. Dad's being weird again.
Yep, right. I get that anyway.
Yes.
That'll be nothing new.
Yes. That's what happens with teenagers.
Yes. How's your week been? What's new? What's shaking? What are the haps? Is that what the kids say these days?
No, not at all. But that doesn't mean we can't say that.
Right.
It's school's out. So schedules are all different. And I don't know, it always seems like when school's out and my kids have free time, or I don't know, it seems like suddenly my evenings get freed up. I don't know why. It seems like I'm on summer break too, although I have to work, but it seems like my evenings are just different because I'm not having to, I don't know, make sure they're doing homework. I don't know. It's weird. So I've been getting into the Criterion Channel and
you sure have been.
The Columbia Noir. When they first launched, that was one of the sort of categories they were promoting. They had a whole list, sort of playlist built out called Columbia Noir. And so I decided after watching Gaslight and all of that to, I'm enjoying these older films. Maybe I should check this out. And I then discovered, a lot of these are on special engagement that they're going away at the end of June. So now I'm just working my way chronologically through the Columbia Noir, and I'm having a lot of fun watching these, older films that are with runtimes of like an hour or 70 minutes. It's really interesting to see the structure of them and how they take their time and then not suddenly, we've got like 7 minutes. We better just wrap this up. Like, wait, what? Just suddenly like, we're going to resolve this really quickly instead of like spending another 20 or 30 minutes. We're just going to end it right now. And I'm assuming that has to do with like real length or something like that. I don't know on these low budget films. But there's some really good stuff there. I'm going to try and get through. I think there's 12 in the collection. I'm going to try and get through I've got like 9 left, I think. 9 or 10 left. I'm going to try and get through them by the end of the month. So that's my goal. Yeah.
That's not too bad. That's kind of a fun goal to have.
A couple a week. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the transition in noir from the early 40s as we get into the 50s, because there was a little introductory piece sort of talking about Columbia and noir and how noir wasn't really a sort of a genre at the time. It was more of like murder stories, and looking at these early ones that are more like psychological, almost like the gaslighting, and then later on we get more into the hard-boiled detective type of stories. So I'm just going to enjoy sort of this little journey through the decades.
That's a little easier of a task than my crazy 200 some films that I've added to my watch list after listening to the 80s All Over podcast. Oy. What am I doing to myself?
I don't know. I don't know. What are you doing to yourself? Now, is it 80s stuff that you've seen before? It's 80s things that you just you just haven't seen in a long time? Right?
It's both. Okay. Some I haven't seen in ages and I'd like to revisit. Some I just never saw, and some I never saw but I've always been curious about. Some of it is stuff that I never saw, and I was like not curious about it, but then I hear them talk about it. I'm like, oh, maybe I should have been curious about that. I'll have to check that one out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And any surprising like hidden gems that you've discovered in this little 80s thing?
Well, I haven't had a chance to dig too deep yet. Mostly what I've been doing is, I had been prepping for that panel I was on.
That's right. Oh, wait, yeah. How did that go?
At Phoenix Comic Con. It was a successful conversation. We had a nice chat about kind of the rise of superhero movies from Superman all the way up through X-Men and beyond. And we're actually going to release it as a special bonus episode during our hiatus, I believe. So people,
great.
I don't know if it's just a Patreon only or for everybody, but it's something that we'll be releasing, so everyone will get a chance to hear our conversation. It was a fun one. We got we go off on a few tangents and maybe spend a little too much time on certain films that might not need time spent on, but all in all, it was still a good conversation to have. So yeah, it was fun. But because of that, largely the 80s films I had still been focusing on were the ones that were, Howard the Duck and Dolph Lundgren's The Punisher, things that, I didn't want to necessarily be watching, but I did watch Men in Black with the kids, and this doesn't fit in any way to the 80s all over podcast, but more to this one, looking at Men in Black with the kids, and that was fun. I hadn't watched that film in ages, and I was like, this might be a fun one to show the kids, and they really enjoyed it, and so I figured, well, we'll go through the others, getting ready for the new one that's coming out.
Categorize it. It's a light comedy, but it's got some darkness to it as well, because you've got really creepy sort of antagonist Vincent D'Onofrio, the bug guy, but I remember it not taking itself too seriously, having a lot of fun with it, which I think some movies lose.
It's one that, revisiting it reminded me the story itself is not super strong. But what really stands out is just the world building they did. They did a great job of making the world. It was a lot of fun to kind of go along with. I had a good time with the ride. And, I've never seen the second one. I hear it's terrible, but it'll be an interesting one to look at and see if the kids get any more out of it. And then the third one, I think, it might be my favorite of the ones I've seen. So I'm looking forward to looking at those films again.
I don't think I saw the third one. Is that the one with Josh Brolin? Because they go back.
It is.
And that's the one that I have not seen, because I thought, they're just going back to the money machine and cranking another one out. But if you say it's worth checking out, I may have to.
It was, I thought it was very smartly done.
Okay.
So. Yeah.
Check that one out. I have to put it on the list, see if I can find it. May get around to it in the next year or two. We'll see.
So that's me not quite being patient zero on this one.
Well, I have an incentive.
You've seen it. I have. Or you haven't seen it, but you've seen you're familiar with the franchise. It's not like a totally new film.
No.
So.
And it's one that might be, might check that one out, getting ready for the next one. I know it's not a straight, sequel. It's in that, well, maybe it is. I don't know. But it might be worth checking it out, prepping for the new one. So what's new in the movie world? Any new interesting information? I haven't come across anything. I think the big news has just been, the whole Star Wars Disney thing opening. I've seen that all over the place. And then I guess the related Disney news is Disney not shooting in Georgia is one thing that I've seen.
Warner Brothers is looking at doing the same.
Oh, because I remember, I think almost all of the Marvel stuff, it's always a lot of those were shot in Georgia, as I recall, because I see the big Georgia peach there at the end for, I think, wasn't it I can't remember if it was the first Avengers or did they shot that one in Cincinnati or something like that, I think. But
I don't know.
Andy, you're the Marvel guy. I know. You're
don't pay attention to.
You're like, I'm only an Iron Man. Give me a break. 5 years later, when I get to Avengers, we can talk about that where they shot it.
Right, exactly.
But that's the only thing that off the top of my head, I recall. I don't know if you got any Marvel news or any other news you.
I don't really know. My brain's been just just kind of busy with everything else going on, and I just haven't had a chance to dig into any news at all.
Oh, well,
so I don't know.
We got the Batman thing. That
Well,
was
the Batman decision has been made.
So I guess that's the other news that's out there is, whether or not people care about it or not. Got a new Batman.
I think he's a great choice. People seem to have issues, but I don't know. I like the idea of Robert Pattinson as Batman. I think that he's got a good look for it. So,
yeah, I think, I don't want to say it's always the fault of the actor. I mean, it's going to depend on the script and the director and how all of those things work together. Unfortunately, whoever is the actor is going to take the brunt of it because they're, the most visible on that. But you can't completely fault an actor for these issues. So I feel like it's unfair to him to prejudge. I think we've talked about previously, everybody was dumbfounded by the selection of Michael Keaton to play Batman. Here's a silly comic actor. Why would he do this? So we've got, I'm always willing to give them a chance to show what they can do. I mean, we've still got the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie. Who knows what that thing's going to even look like? The tone of that, I don't know. I'll walk in and we'll see where things go with all this. So
yeah. Right. I do have an odd bit of I guess it's Marvel news. This is kind of a strange little story. Arnold Schwarzenegger, he is you remember Kindergarten Cop, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which was a kind of a fun, albeit oddly toned movie about a cop who becomes a kindergarten teacher and then has to kill the bad guy and stuff. And is like, who's the target audience? I'm not sure. Well, he is actually going back to kindergarten with an animated project that he put together with Stan Lee. It's a cartoon called Superhero Kindergarten, written by Deadpool co-creator Fabian. I don't know how you say Fabian's last name. Nicieza.
Okay.
I don't know. I think I'm
Superhero Kindergarten.
Wrong,
okay.
Yeah. It revolves around Arnold Armstrong, formerly a superhero called Captain Courage, but now in semi-retirement as a gym teacher, having lost his superpowers fighting his arch nemesis, Dr. Superior. But when an explosion of superpowered particles rain down and starts turning 5-year-olds into X-Men, he is ideally placed to help them adjust.
Okay.
There's the strangest mashup that I've heard in a while. But there it is. There you go.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had a sort of superhero high school movie. The last one I think of is, Sky High, which was,
yes.
Oh my gosh, That must have been like longer than that. It must have been like 15 years ago or so. But that's
somewhere around there.
With Kurt Russell, you got the superhero parents and the kids and all of that. So yeah, I guess it's time to take a new take on superheroes now that we're past Endgame. Yeah, all right.
They're always looking for new audiences.
Yes.
So, well, let's talk trailers, I guess.
You just are eager to talk about your weird A24 pick this week. I was like, you and Pete were like, usually I'm the one that's like Tuesday or Wednesday posting trailers, and you guys are like, it's like, what, Tuesday, Wednesday, both of you are like with your trailers. I thought, what? I haven't even had a chance to look this week, and you guys are already snapping up trailers. But when I saw yours, I thought, oh well, that genre fits. I'll let Andy have that one. That one makes sense for you to have as a pick.
Well, yeah. So it's funny because I was actually surprised when Pete got so excited about it. I was like, really? This trailer?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure what drew him to it because, he likes to tell us time and time again that horror is not his jam.
Exactly.
I'm guessing maybe it's the comedy element of it. I don't know. There's a slight kind of comedy element. It's weird. The trailer is for Peter Strickland's new film In Fabric, which it's okay, this is kind of a random aside. Do you remember the show Amazing Stories?
Yes.
there was an episode in that show about a toupee that came to life, and it would basically, it was like a demon possessed toupee or something, and when it gets on somebody's head, it would turn them into a killer. And they would like kill somebody, and then it would jump off of their head and get into somebody else's head or something. And it would keep doing this. And the whole thing, and it all revolved around this silly joke, which is, this guy says at the end, this is how he figures out who's doing it, because I think it's killing lawyers specifically. And he's like, yeah, lawyers sure are hell to pay. Hell to pay. It's a hell to pay. That was the whole gag. They wrote it, I think, around that joke. It's pretty silly. But I kind of feel like this is similar. This is a dress that I think is alive. And it's like a demon-possessed dress that is tormenting this poor woman. I don't even know what to say about it. It looks wacky. It looks like a blend of some strange, like, some of the kind of the Italian horror, kind of the Gallo films. It just, or Giallo. It very much has that look, and even the credits, like all the text on the screen, they really kind of play to that kind of older style, and it looks so weird. It looks like it could be creepy. It looks like it could be funny. It looks like an interesting blend of all of that. Weirdly, I shouldn't say weirdly, but I didn't pick the trailer because of any of those reasons. I picked it because of Marianne Jean-Baptiste, who I really enjoy as an actress, and I don't feel like I see her a ton, even though she is always busy. She's very much a busy actress in all sorts of projects, including like Edge of Tomorrow and the recent RoboCop, and she was in How to Get Away with Murder, and she was in the Peter Rabbit movie. So she's a very busy actress. But I always go back to the '96 film Secrets and Lies that she was in, that Mike Leigh directed. That was where I first just totally fell in love with her as a performer. I thought that film was just brilliant, and I thought she was brilliant. And seeing her kind of as the centerpiece of this film, paired with this wonderful red dress, I was just thrilled. So that's kind of what drew me in. And I don't know, it looks really interesting. And I'm not that familiar with Peter Strickland, who's the writer-director. I've heard of Berberian Sound Studio, but I haven't seen any of his films. I don't know. What did you think of this one?
Yeah, I love the style of the trailer. That's what really drew me in. And the concept is fun. So I am really interested to see what direction this takes, how they balance that horror with the ridiculousness of this premise of this, cursed dress. I'm not familiar. I haven't seen any of Strickland's other films. I've heard of what is it? Berberian?
Berberian. Yeah, Berberian.
I've heard of that film because of it's just supposedly a very disturbing film. So I don't know what to make of this, but it's one I don't know that I'm going to rush out to theaters to see it. I guess it depends where it shows up, because it does look beautiful to the colors and everything. But yeah, I'll wait for some initial reviews before I rush out, because I just don't know on this one. But it is definitely intriguing. It's nothing that I would make JJ watch for Trailer Rewind. I'm certain of that, but it's. Horror is really, I think we've talked about this. There's a resurgence in horror in just the broad spectrum of how you can approach, sort of the horror genre. And I'm always excited by something that's new. So it is exciting. I just cautious, because I don't like to be really unsettled and disturbed by horror movies. And from what I've heard of, there's Berberian Sound Studio. It's nothing that I'm really interested in putting myself through, so I'm cautious about this one.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of the Suspiria remake.
Yes. Oh well.
It actually reminds me of both the original and the remake.
That's true. Yes.
Like, it has that vibe running through it. So it could kind of play like one of those types of films. Or it could just be something that's really wacky, and you kind of scratch your head at when it's over and go, okay. So anyway, In Fabric releases June 28th.
Oh, just around the corner.
Yeah, it's not too far off. And actually, I have that as a UK release date. I don't know. As I look, I'm trying to find if it has a US release date here. Looks like other than film festivals in the U.S., it doesn't have a release date. It's going from, it'll be at a bunch of festivals, and then the UK, June 28th, Russia, August 15th, the Netherlands, September 5th. But past that, it has not, looks like it hasn't found a U.S. distributor. Or if it has, they haven't set a date yet. So there you go, In Fabric.
All right.
So what's yours?
Oh, what have I got here? I started digging around trying to find something. So what I came up with was a surprise. So this is writer Andrea Berloff. Looks like she's cashing in her chips and trying her hand as a director after writing World Trade Center, Straight Outta Compton. She's got this one, which is called The Kitchen, which is story of the wives of New York gangsters in Hell's Kitchen in the 1970s who continue to operate their husbands' rackets after the husbands have been locked up in prison, which at first I thought, well, this sounds a lot like last year's film Widows, where the wives take over. Right. But this one's sort of a period piece. Now, I never got around to seeing Widows, so I may have maybe a double feature coming out in the future. But what's intriguing to me about The Kitchen is the cast, because you've got some recognizable faces, but more for comedy than for drama. When you've got now, Melissa McCarthy has sort of done both sides of that, but Tiffany Haddish is really known for comedy. So this is her first, attempt in drama. And some comic actors can really make that transition well. Others struggle with it. And then we also have Elizabeth Moss. So I don't know the tone of this, how straight it's going to be, or if it's going to be a drama with comic moments to it. The trailer seems to be playing it more straight. The trailer really stylizes it like very gritty 70s Scorsese type. We've got this, the mob and these wives trying to move in and take over. So I'm not sure if that trailer is giving us everything. It is going to play it as a straight drama, but I just think when you've got Melissa McCarthy and Tiffany Haddish in there, there's got to be some improv. There's got to be some comedy going on. That's what people are going to show up to expect from this, at least a few laughs from them. So I don't know how this film's going to balance all of that out, but it looks like a story that, I find interesting. Like I said, I may do a double feature with Widows at some point, but this is hitting theaters August 9th, right here at the height of summer. So what did you think of this one?
I hadn't heard of this one, and it got me really excited, especially because I, not too recently just finished my Melissa McCarthy series. Yes. I just watched all of her films and finally just actually wrapped it up with Can You Ever Forgive Me? I think that she's just a brilliant actress, and I think that she can really effectively blend comedy and drama. Mm-hmm. And, you get hints of that here, like when she's counting the money at the end of the trailer. Right. I lost count again. So there's hints of that comedy that I think they're going to thread in here. But I think the way that it plays off is they're keeping the comedy just kind of at kind of normal levels of just funny instances happening, but really kind of focusing on this story, which looks really interesting. And it's based on a Vertigo comic, which kind of a miniseries, which, I saw the DC Vertigo logo at the beginning. I'm like, oh, what is this? Right. Hell's Kitchen in the 70s. What is going on here? I really had no idea what to expect watching this. And like you said, with this cast of ladies kind of helming this project, I'm like, it did not seem to fit. But watching the trailer, I was like, these ladies are carrying this really effectively. And I was thrilled with the tone, the look, everything that Andrea Berloff is doing here. I am really impressed with. And, I thought she did an incredible job with the writing on Straight Outta Compton. And what she appears to be doing here, I think... Yeah. I mean, count me in. I think this one looks really good. And I missed Widows also, and absolutely now want to do kind of a double feature, both of these, because I think they both look like really good films. So this very interesting pick, and I'm glad that we got to talk about it. Yeah. So it surprised me. This is one where
I'm sort of expecting sometime in the summer after this has a big opening weekend, it'll be like, gosh, wow, what a surprise. Female-led movies can do really strongly at the box office. I'm like, yes, we've been over this before, over and over again, because it happened when Melissa McCarthy and Sandra Bullock did, The Heat. Yeah. People were like, wow, female, raunchy comedies. I'm like, yeah, you talked about that with Bridesmaids as well. So it's, these shouldn't be surprises when these films come off and do well and are of high quality. But with this cast, I'm very excited. We also have Domhnall Gleeson and Common in there. So a really solid cast. And I'm, good summer fun, hopefully, with a gritty twist.
Definitely. Yeah, right. Well, count me in.
All right.
I'm excited about that one. Okay, well, I guess it's time for our lists.
It is.
Oh my.
Yes. It was.
Yeah, so we did, this was one where we kind of had to, there was quite a lockup that we had.
Yes.
Everybody was pretty split on either talking about what we're talking about, POV films or films with POV, or what was the other choice that people were picking? Me and My Shrink. Right.
Yes.
So we are going with the POV, and it's a fun one. There certainly were quite a bit of POV shots in Spellbound, which is the movie we're talking about this week. So, I guess we'll get started. Do you want to kick it off?
You went first with your trailer. You go ahead and kick it off because I've got a short list and I'm going to see if there's any steals. We will see.
I had a longer list than I thought. The thing is, there are a lot of opportunities for POV.
Yes.
There are entire films that are shot in POV, and then there's the POV where it's like POV where it's like something that you wouldn't expect to see,
right?
Or looking at it through a particular object like binoculars, or we just did a lot of Iron Man conversations on the Marvel Movie Minute, looking at things through his HUD. There's a lot of opportunities like that. There's also when you're, drugged out and you're getting kind of that perspective POV, that's all kind of that. There's also the monster POV, something's coming up on you. And then there's also the strange POVs where it's you're an inanimate object and people just happen to be looking at you. And it's a weird POV from an inanimate object. There's an interesting variety, and I think it's fun to kind of look at them. I tried to mix it up a little bit with my POVs. The first one I'm going with, I wouldn't say it's a great film, but I'd say for the conversation about these POV types of films, it's an interesting one to look at because it's an early one, and it's one where they were really trying to kind of put you in the head of the protagonist. I'm talking about the 1947 film Lady in the Lake. This is Robert Montgomery's POV detective noir film, focusing on the Philip Marlowe as he's trying to find the wife of this guy who runs a magazine, and gets involved in kind of this whole murder plot and everything. It's an interesting experiment for the 40s, where you basically made an entire film from somebody's point of view, especially because obviously it's not taking place over the hour and a half. There are jumps. And so they had to figure out, okay, how are we going to jump to the next scene? And I think it's interesting. I think it works some of the time, but it's not a great film, but it is really interesting to look at and to see what they were trying to do and how they were trying to take a go at it, especially because it is based on one of these Raymond Chandler novels where it's kind of written in that first person narrative style. So it's an interesting experiment, and I wanted to kick it off with that. No,
that's one that I came across in my research that I hadn't seen, but I'm glad you picked that, because that's sort of the reason I mentioned POV for this list, because in the 40s, most films are shot in general, sort of like you're watching a play. The camera is there and you get the scene. And sometimes we get, we'll get some cinematographers and directors that are doing some really innovative camera work with the camera moving through windows, things like that. But traditionally things are locked down. And I think a lot of that had to do with the limitations of equipment. So to have a camera that's more mobile, that's taking on the point of view of a person back then, really innovative. And to try to do that for an entire film, just interesting, challenge to take on. So my list, I'm a little bit more rooted in more recent films. With found footage is where I'm going to start, because I know you guys did a found footage series. It's been a while, but this is one of my favorites in that genre, which is Cloverfield, the first one, because we have the gimmick with found footage is, what is the reason for us to be seeing this, and who's holding the camera and why? And for Cloverfield, for me, it worked in the theater. I remember there being all kinds of warnings about this, the jerky camera, the jiggly monkeys, right? Could make you nauseous because of the camera moving around from that point of view. But that's where I want to start, is for people that haven't seen Cloverfield. I don't know who that would be, but also to point people back to the found footage series, because I think that ties into sort of this POV series. You and Pete did, several films looking at that found footage, and I think it's one that some of our newer listeners may not be aware of. Be worth going back to check out. But I want to start with Cloverfield.
That's a great one. I mean, we talked about that one on our found footage series, and it's a really interesting film. That spawned an odd franchise, I guess. But it certainly is one. I love it. I think it's a great film. I have issues with some of it, but I have a lot of fun with it too. So, all right. Next up for me, I am. I was thinking about this, and I wanted to do one where you get into the antagonist perspective, particularly in horror films, the killer's perspective, because they do a lot of that in films. It's an interesting way to kind of put you in the head of the killer as the killer is stalking their prey. I think it can be very effective. Obviously, there are a lot of filmmakers who have employed it because they may not necessarily have the budget, especially when it's a particular creature, things like that. In this particular case, it is a human, and in this particular case, it becomes incredibly effective and absolutely horrifying because of the way that it plays out. This is the perspective of James Gumb, who is stalking Clarice Starling in his basement in the dark. She's in pitch darkness, and he is watching her through an infrared goggles. And he's basically like stalking her. She can't see anything, and you're just watching her through his perspective as she's kind of stumbling around and knocking into things, and she has her hands reached out, and he is like practically in front of her, and he's reaching his hand out toward her, and then he's reaching a gun up, and it's super creepy, and it was done so effectively. The audience, I remember watching this the first time, it had such incredible audience reactions because it's really terrifying being in his shoes watching our protagonist. That's my next choice, The Silence of the Lambs.
I have not seen that in forever. It's one I need to revisit, because I remember just being astonished at that film when I first saw it in theaters. So no, that's a great pick and a nice reminder to revisit one that I have not seen. It's, it's one of those films that's sort of taken on, I don't know, like iconic status, and Anthony Hopkins' performance has sort of become, I don't know, I don't want to say a cliche, but a stereotype of a villain. But I mean, there's a reason for that. Right. His performance in that. No, that's a great pick. Hey, all right, I'm going to go full on POV insanity with my next one. And this actually, this was my first experience with this. Actually, was about 6 years ago, because this director directed a video for a band called Biting Elbows, and the name of the song is Bad Mother Effer, and the whole music video is point of view shot of a guy who's sort of escaping from men in black suits, and there's sci-fi elements, but it was all, first person point of view as he's fighting these guys off and everything. And I think it was sort of proof of concept for director Ilya Naishuller for his much larger film, Hardcore Henry. So it was a project several years in the making, and Hardcore Henry is just a ridiculously insane movie. It's a lot of fun. It's nothing I don't know that I could have endured it in the theater. I did see it at home on TV where I could pause occasionally. But just that point of view, sort of like GoPro on the head type of perspective allows you to do a lot of creative things in terms of editing and shooting around things. And it's just violence and gore to the max, with a story that's, there's not a lot to it, but the action just, sort of keeps you through. And it's got a fun cast with, you've got, what's his name? Charlton Copley, who plays multiple characters in this film. So he keeps reappearing. So it's whether they're clones or it's just a lot of fun. If you haven't seen it, it's one that I won't say it's a great movie, but it's something to at least experience once.
It's one that I missed. I actually had a buddy who worked on it, so I keep feeling the need to watch it. I just have never gotten around to it, but I'm going to have to check that one out. It certainly piques my curiosity.
Not for kids, unless you're Pete. Pete can watch that with his kids only. He wants very gory.
Excellent. Well, for my last one, I feel like I need to go with, a really just a fantastic film that this time I was like, okay, I want to get into the head of not just the protagonist, but really in an example where we're getting into the head of the protagonist, but in a way where the director is making the audience complicit in the actions that are going on in the film. I think it's a really interesting example. Looking at Alfred Hitchcock's 1954 film, Rear Window, I felt it was also fitting since we are kind of talking about a couple of Hitchcock films right now. This film I find so interesting as we kind of hang out with Jimmy Stewart as and the character Jeff as he's stuck in a wheelchair. And what is he doing? He's sitting around in his apartment, and he's looking out the window, his rear window, into the courtyard that backs up to a bunch of other apartments. And he's basically people watching. And it very much is an example of how how Hitchcock likes to point things out to the audience. Like, he is the audience and he's as complicit in all of this as you are sitting in the theater watching this. It's a really interesting way that it all plays out as we kind of look at everybody going through their daily lives in the back, plus a murder. So it's, I think, a really interesting film, well worth checking out. That's my final pick, Rear Window.
Oh, I've discovered that film in high school. I actually had a film studies class in high school, saw that, and I'd seen a couple other Hitchcock movies, but oh my gosh, I just fell in love with this movie. It's I think it's in my top 10 of all time. And unique point of view pieces, and usually through the camera as he's looking at, but there is one great POV shot where you can tell how much Hitchcock was in love with Grace Kelly, because it's shot from, Jimmy Stewart's point of view as Grace Kelly's just coming in, I think to give him a kiss or something. And it's one of those cases where it's POV from him, but usually we get that through the camera or binoculars or something like this. But this is without his camera equipment between him and her.
Right.
Oh, great pick. Classic. Wow.
Awesome. Well, what's your final pick?
So my final pick surprised me. So Nick Langdon mentioned a movie yesterday, late in the day, and just said, oh, here's, if you're talking about POV, here's this opening scene from this movie, The Villainous. So I said, oh, that looks interesting. It was available on Hulu. I watched it last night, about halfway through, and then finished it up this morning. This is an amazing movie. The opening fight scene is all point of view from this female assassin. But what the film does then, when it shifts from her point of view in some of these fight scenes, the camera moves similarly. So it's almost like a camera moving through the fight choreography, so it's still being able to use some of the tricks that that first person point of view gives you, where it's a quick whip pan to mask a cut, to limit what you're seeing, to pan across the fight scene to mask cuts. It works so well. It's not quite the what was it, chaos cinema, where it's shaky camera in fights. It's actually a camera that's choreographed through these fight scenes at some points. When it's not first person point of view, it's just you're in the fight and the camera is moving around to move in and on certain, stabs and blood spurts, or to move around the room to get you to a different aspect of the fight all in one continuous shot. So some really unique choreography. I'm assuming that the team behind John Wick 3 has seen this movie, because this film, which was released in 2017, has a sort of like knife fight on motorcycles. And if you've seen any of the clips from John Wick 3, you'll see that there's a similar fight scene. This one's much shorter, but it's a lot of fun. The story is very reminiscent of Luc Besson's Nikita, where you've got an assassin that's recruited, given a new identity. So the story hits some familiar points, some different twists near the end, but I had so much fun. I want to thank Nick so much for recommending this movie. It is so much fun. I'm hoping that there's a sequel to this one, because I really enjoyed this character and her story. Or at least another film shot in this style from this director, because it is just so much fun. I want to highly recommend it. I will gladly be patient zero on this one, because it's bonkers.
I think Nick gets patient zero credit.
Oh, yes, we can give Nick patient zero credit on this one if it goes viral, because it's just really brilliant choreography and cinematography combined. I was trying to come up with a word for that, like choreo cinematography. I don't know what to call it, because the camera is choreographed through these fight sequences. It's unlike anything I've seen before, and it's so much fun.
Interesting. Where did you say you found it?
To watch? I found it on Hulu.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sure it's still out there. You can rent it, digitally. You probably find it at the library. It's from 2017. Was looking for some info about this film because I'd never heard it before. It was released at Cannes, out of competition, and got a 4-minute standing ovation. It seems like that's the only festival where they record the time of ovations, because it's usually
That's how long of an
it's always like,
have.
oh yeah, this movie did great. It had a 6-minute standing ovation at the end. This one had a 5-minute standing.
Right.
It's not about stars or what critics say. It's about how long of a standing ovation it gets. And this one was a lot of fun. So There you go.
Well, I'm adding it to my list because it sounds really interesting. Sounds like something I'd love. So awesome. Well, them's the lists, everybody.
Yeah. What are we going to do for next time? What are you guys talking about?
We are continuing talking about Hitchcock and Ingrid Bergman as we look at Notorious, which is she joins Cary Grant as they head to Rio de Janeiro and set up a con to catch a Nazi post World War II Nazi criminal. And figure out his whole plot. So, have you seen Notorious?
Yes, this is the one with the big the camera following the key, right? That big long.
It's not really following it, right? It's like showing a party. It comes from way upstairs, and then it booms all the way down to her hand and reveals that she has the key in her hand. Yeah.
So it's been a long time, but yes, I have seen it, but I don't remember key story points. That's the one thing I remember. It's sort of like everybody knows the Dolly dream sequence, and then everybody knows the key scene from Notorious. So you'll have to refresh my memory on key plot points and story points on this one. So for list purposes.
Well, I feel like there's something in that whole key element because, they're trying to get into the wine cellar because there's something mysterious happening with the wine and they're trying to figure it out. And so she has to secretly take his key, her husband's key, get it to Cary Grant so he can sneak in there, investigate, and get the key back on her husband's key ring before he's any the wiser. So I feel like there is something in that where it's like, they're trying to, it's like, Ocean's 11 types of stuff, where they're trying to break into something
Okay.
Kind of a, secret, I don't know, what do you call that? Just kind of a covert break-in, kind of a heist. I mean, it's not really a heist though.
No, but it's sort of I guess the covert break-in. Yeah, I guess where you've got, I guess you've sort of got somebody on the inside that's got to sneak or steal something. Yeah. I
guess it's just kind of the, breaking in undetected.
Yeah.
But I feel like though it's more than that. It's because it's also about, you have to get this item in order to do that. So it's like, I feel like there's a term for all of this that we're just not.
And there's people listening just shouting it out into the internet there for us, because it's also about like being deceitful and it's not just sneaking into somebody else's. It's like betrayal from inside your family unit or, your team or something like that. It's sort of like, I guess, I don't know, like being the double agent. I don't know. But yeah, it's the sneaky scheme to steal the secret stuff from the seller. I don't know.
Why don't I put sneaky schemes?
There we go. We'll go with sneaky schemes.
We'll just call it that.
Yeah.
Another key element is our antagonist, Claude Rains, is poisoning.
Oh, poison.
Ingrid Bergman.
Poison. Okay.
I think poisoning.
Oh, yes.
Could be a thing by itself, right?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, sneaky schemes, poisoning. Last but not least, let's see what else is going on. We've got Nazi war crimes, so we could do stories about kind of post World War II, just dealing with the leftover Nazis.
Oh, sure. There we go.
Want to do that?
Leftover Nazis. There we are.
The leftover Nazis.
Well, it's separate from World War II. It's like post World War II. So yes,
absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a feeling I know at least one big film we'll probably all be fighting over on next week's list, because there's one that instantly always comes to mind for me.
All right.
Okay. Well, there you go. We've got our lists put together, or the options on this week's poll. So everybody jump into the Show Talk channel over on Discord, get your vote cast, and we will see what we end up talking about next week. Will it be sneaky schemes? Will it be poisoning? Or will it be the leftover Nazis?
Oh, I forgot my bonus on my POV list.
Oh, what is it?
I think I posted this onto Discord maybe a year or so ago, because I can't recommend this movie because it's not a good movie, but it has one of the most hilarious POV shots ever.
I love that. Okay.
Stakeout 2, there's this scene where a cat is being chased by a dog, and I swear there is a POV shot from the cat's butt, because it's POV, the camera's moving, you see the dog running towards you, and then at the top of the frame, there's like a little orange thing hanging down, like as if the camera is right in the middle of the cat's butt, because the tail is sort of bouncing around in the top of frame. It's the most, it's like a 5-second shot. I have no idea why you would do that, but it appears to be cat's butt POV. Stakeout 2.
That's hilarious.
If you can search it out there, I don't recommend the whole movie because... Or was it?
I don't recommend searching it out.
No, what is it? Another Stakeout? Richard Dreyfuss and Emilio Estevez or whatever it was. Yeah, but
that's the one with Rosie O'Donnell,
yes,
isn't it?
Exactly.
Didn't she join them?
Yes,
for the fun?
She did. So not a good movie. But
why haven't we done a Stakeout series yet?
You just need to do well, you're going to hit, is that in the 80s or 90s? That may be early 90s. I can't remember if that's like 89.
I feel like Stakeout was the 80s.
Yeah.
I feel like the sequel came out in the 90s. But
I don't know. Well, if you hit that in your 80s list, you'll have to give us an update. So,
it's been a long time since I've seen Stakeout. Yes. I don't know how much I really want to revisit it, but
because the 80s were so much fun. Okay. Sorry.
There are some interesting films, for sure.
Didn't mean to derail us, but I forgot whenever we talk about POV, I have to mention that because it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
So funny.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you did. Yeah. Everybody needs to know more about cat butt POVs. And more people need to employ it.
No, not really.
Coen Brothers, Tarantino, get on that. They both love POV.
Oh, my. Yes.
All right. Well, I guess that's it. What are you watching next? Anything exciting? You're going to jump back into Criterion Channel?
I think I'm going to jump back into Criterion Channel. And yeah, I don't know if you saw, they're stalking us. They every weekend they do a double feature, and they'll find 2 films that that you wouldn't expect or have a related theme sometimes. And for this weekend's like double feature, it's called Mind Games, and they have Gaslight, which you guys just talked about. And then they have another one that it's the first one in their Columbia Noir selection. And the name is eluding me right now, but I just watched that and I feel like they're stalking us. They're watching us. They're watching what we're watching on Criterion. Ray Delancey and I are, in the Criterion channel. Maybe we're the only ones there. I don't know. And they're trying to cater to us, but, yeah, we will see. But that's, so I'm continuing in the Columbia Noir. I think, I'll try and knock out a couple this weekend. And I'm hoping to get out to see Booksmart this weekend is another thing I'm hoping to do because it's been getting rave reviews. I know Tommy posted in Discord about it. I know Olivia Wilde on Twitter had posted last weekend urging people to try to get out to see it, because it was going to get slaughtered by Aladdin, just urging people to get out so that studios know there are audiences for these films. And I'm sad to say I let her down because it was one that I know I had put as a trailer pick. So I'm hoping to get out this weekend. It's one that I think my kids would enjoy, but if I go with them, I may have to sit in a different part of the theater because I don't know that I want to be near them watching sort of raunchy teen comedies. So
Right. Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, my wife, she saw Booksmart already and really wants to take me to it. She and her sister went and saw it, but now she's like, I have to take you to it. So that's, I think, on our list this weekend to go catch that. I have just a huge watch list of things to check out. I'm always looking at, way too many options to pick from. I just started scrolling through Netflix through my list last night, and I'm like, yeah, I've got a lot of these to watch.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to watch next. I guess I just don't know. But I'd like to put Booksmart on that list. And, I kind of really want to figure out how I'm going to get these first two John Wicks rewatched so that I can finally see the third one. So I may kind of forcibly put that onto my list in front of some of my other watch list items, just so I can feel like I'm caught up to everybody else and actually part of the conversation.
Sounds good.
So, yeah.
All right.
Well, all of our wonderful listeners, thanks so much for supporting us. We really appreciate the love you show us, and we love that you're tuning in every week and checking out the show and chatting with us over on Discord and Facebook and Twitter and wherever else we may be. We really appreciate it, and we are grateful, and we love chatting movies with everybody. So jump in and keep up the conversation. Otherwise, until next week, Steve.
Hondo.